sort of the challenges. Obviously, we all need to take better sort of custody of our own keys, but you've mentioned in general just how difficult it is to communicate securely. And I understand that today you have to announce some work that you are doing in that space to make it easier for folks, both in this room and individually. Could you talk about that?
Yeah. I've been working with Mike Jenke and his team at Silent Circle, Phil Zimmerman and John Callis. And we've been working on a little project we're calling Darkmail. We thought blackmail kind of gave the wrong connotation. And what we're doing is we're setting up a little nonprofit called the Darkmail Alliance. That would be the group that we're using to maintain and control the intellectual property related to this new protocol. I think if I had come to you guys 2-3 years ago and said, hey, it's time to toss out all the mail protocols and replace them with ones that integrate security, all of you would have laughed at me. You would have said, you want to throw out how many man-hours of work all for this hypothetical threat that we don't know exists? Well, I think after the summer of Snowden, hopefully you guys have a slightly different attitude about how important security is and how insecure many of the protocols that we use every day. And I think if we're going to talk a little bit more about Darkmail, I should get Mike up here.
Sure. Just grab you another chair. We got 3 people up here. Pardon 1 second.
All right, thanks.
Maybe you could just pull those back just a little bit.
My partners in crime, everyone.
I'm not in front of a logo, am I? All right, good.
You guys are the logo now. You got the new product. This is wonderful. So tell me more. So you have both an alliance and a product. So what is the alliance component of this?
I'll give you the mission statement and then I'll let Mike expand on it. But our goal is to provide end-to-end, user-to-user security. The type of security you get today with PGP, but by integrating it into the protocol, give us the ability to secure the meta information as it traverses the network and make it easy enough that grandma can use. Our hope is that someday in the very near future, anybody who can use email today will be able to use a Darkmail compatible client and get a way to communicate with their friends and associates securely. Mike?
Yeah, so basically what you've got is you've got a real interesting mix going on here. You've got the Phil Zimmerman, who John and I is the co-founder of Silent Circle along with John and I, creator of PGP. You got John Callis, who's the creator of PGP Universal Server and Apple's whole disk encryption. And you got Ladar, who, if you haven't figured it out, is one hell of an engineer. Some of the best trained people are the people who built their own system from the ground up, then figured out how to secure it. You'd be hard-pressed to find some more talent out there in a secure world.
I'll pay you later, Mike.
Exactly. So if you picture in your mind a peer-to-peer, end-to-end encrypted protocol that was developed by John, Phil, and Vincent Mascaratolo at Silent Circle that utilizes ephemeral keys. The keys are generated for that session on the device. Slap on a Mailbox UI, if you're familiar with Mailbox or any mail app or desktop client. Looks, smells, feels, reacts, tastes like email. You got the 2, the BCC, the CC, folders, deleted file. And you go to type in an email address, Mike gets, Darkmail to Ladar. The UI stays green, user interface on it. So I'm sending a completely end-to-end encrypted, no metadata email. And then I want to add in Grandma Janky at Gmail into the mix.
We shouldn't use Gmail as an
We
example.
shouldn't use Gmail. Maybe that's a bad one.
We all know how seriously Gmail takes security. So
Right. That's a good point.
I'm sure they'll be one of the first companies to.
I'll retract that. So the UI turns red to allow the person to understand that this email leaks metadata is insecure. The idea is we were, before Ladar and us got together, we were originally just going to launch it as a Silent Circle product sometime in 2014. And, we all spent a lot of time thinking about this, and we felt what we could do together was literally change the landscape of architecture for the future of email, putting it out open source, allowing the world to pick it apart, add ideas, put the protocol out, and go forward and help other email providers put it in place so that, hopefully in second quarter, third quarter 2014, you wake up and there are 24 providers offering dark mail, so that the world begins to proliferate and puts privacy back in your hands. The story of Ladar being arm twisted is just one that came out and somebody fought back. There are 1,000 happening around the world every day that are gagged. So it's time to change 40-year-old architecture of email with default security and privacy. And I'll let John talk a little bit about the technical side of that.
Well, I was just going to add that part of the reason that we're announcing it here is because, as interesting as it would be for us to create a protocol for LavaBit to talk to Silent Circle, the real value comes in is if we can get you guys to participate in this development process, if we can get your organizations to support dark mail, so that next year at Inbox Love, we've got 1,000 dark mail providers out there, and everybody's communicating securely. Because people love their current addresses. They're not going to, some people aren't going to switch just to get secure communication. And what we're hoping is that by involving you guys in the process and by announcing it here, hopefully we can convince some of you guys to help us out.
So it's clear to us that you all are probably the best, some of the best in the world for implementing or for creating a system like this, a framework like this. But how would it integrate with people in this room? Where would it fit in the stack?
So this is really a set of protocols, and it's a set of protocols that has as the goal, you start out with security, and for those who need to dial the security down, you can dial the security down. The problem right now is that email has no security, and you're forced to dial it up, and you can only dial it up to a certain point. There's lots of metadata in every email that absolutely cannot be protected at all. So we want it to be flexible. We want it to be able to be the sort of thing that you can use in very high security environments, but you could use in regulated industries as well. So you get to set what security you have, but the default is that everything is end-to-end secure. And this is because we've known, and Ladar has shown quite dramatically, that if you are a provider of any sort of information service, if you're holding the information, it can be requested of you. And there are two ways to deal with that. One is don't hold the data, and the other one is if you're holding the data, make sure it's encrypted and you don't have the key. Because if you have the data and the key, it might as well not be encrypted. So our idea is to take as much as we can do from what other people have done before. XMPP is our main protocol for doing the main communication between parties. And think of it as the body of the email is held in some sort of cloud storage, and cloud storage can be anything from it's on my disk and has a server attached to it to it's sitting in a formal cloud service. So I tell the other person using an encrypted thing, and this is what our protocol SCIMP that we're using that for. So I send you a message that says, over XMPP, that says, I have a full detailed message for you, and here's where you can find it. And I give you the address. It's a URI for it. And you go get that, and then you figure out what you're supposed to do to it. From a user point of view, you can consider an email system to just be a directory subtree. I've got inbox, old mail, drafts, archives, and an email client is really just a viewer into that directory subtree, and some protocols like IMAP are just database query languages for a directory full of files. So if you have a way that the end user has their email store, which could be only on one device, in cloud storage provided by a provider like one of us, or even potentially say like, small appliance that you keep in your house, that the store of the email is kept fully encrypted, and we use known protocols like XMPP with some crypto on top of that to make sure that the message transfer is done. It's very similar to the way that a lot of other protocols work, where you separate out the addressing from the actual bulk transfer. And there's the sketch right there.
Yeah,
So-
I don't think we should get too much
Yeah.
into the very deep technical details of how everything's going to work, because I think a lot of it's going to change, and it's going to change based on your input. But one of the key things that he brought up is that what we're thinking about doing is basically building a new messaging protocol based around JSON that, like he said, includes security by default.
I would say we already have it.
Yeah.
We already have a
Yeah,
working
I mean-
prototype of it.
That our texting system, Silent Text, basically works this way. That if I send you the equivalent of an MMS, I text you a picture, what happens is that you get an encrypted XMPP message that tells you where to go get the picture, and the picture is end-to-end encrypted between me and you, and nobody else can decrypt it at all.
So what I'd like to do now is just talk a little bit about what we're planning to do in terms of logistically. Is we're creating a nonprofit called the Dark Mail Alliance that Silent Circle, LavaBit, and hopefully some of you will become members of. And it will hold the intellectual property and be responsible for developing this new dark mail standard. And then we'll have service providers like Silent Circle, which will offer dark mail compatible accounts. But what does that do for LavaBit? Since I've basically decided that I don't think I can return as a service provider until my case is settled, I've decided that if there can't be a LavaBit, the next best thing is 100 LavaBit-like services. So I'm planning to raise some money. I have a Kickstarter campaign all ready to go, and I'm going to raise some capital. We're going to clean up the LavaBit code, and we're going to release it as an open source piece of software. And our goal is to release it with support for dark mail built in, so that when we have 100 LavaBit-like services out there, they're all dark mail compatible. And when they send emails back and forth between each other, they're secure. And we're hoping to have that done, like he said, early next year.
So what I would add to that is we're going to put the people and the effort and the energy behind going to email providers to help them implement this. And we also it's very important for us to put it out open source. We strongly believe that the only way to come up with, some of the issues we look at is multiple device, synchronization. So we want to get the community to help us, rather than us just launching this new email by ourselves. We want to get as many people into it. And it's as Ladar and John and Phil and I have said, we'll be successful if in 3 to 4 years, 51% of the email providers are offering dark mail to their customers.
So just by a show of hands, who out here wants to support dark mail? I like it.
Well,
Yeah.
you had mentioned the support from the community, and I'd love, we just have a few more minutes up here, so I'd love to get some questions from the community. So if you do have a question, there's a microphone right here. It would be great if you could walk over there and pose your question. Just as a brief summary, I understand that you have the Dark Mail Alliance, which is a not-for-profit, and you have your Kickstarter campaign to open source much of the LavaBit code with
What
dark
I'm
mail
trying to
support.
do is transition LavaBit from a services company into a software company, and use the free open source business model of releasing and maintaining the source code, but also offering consulting and support services around that.
Sure.
So for companies that can't necessarily take our reference implementation and drop it into their existing architecture, they can bring somebody from the LavaBit team in, and we can assist you in integrating support for dark mail into your existing products and services.
Hello. How are you thinking about trade-offs between security and functionality? For example, trade-offs between end-to-end user encryption versus server-side cloud-based search.
By integrating it directly into the protocol, the client, the dark mail compatible client, will be able to figure out how the keys are handled. And in the most secure mode, the keys will be generated and only maintained on the device itself, which will make it difficult to use multiple devices. In multi-device mode, we've got several solutions for this, but a couple of them would be generating different keys for each device and publishing them all collectively so that when a message is sent, it's keyed to each device separately. And then the alternative strategy to that would be a secure key exchange protocol via the server, where the client encrypts the keys on the device before uploading them to the server so the other device can pull it back down.
Is
And
search,
then-
is search then all
Well,
device-based?
the third mode would be server-based encryption, which would be very similar to what PGP Universal did and what the LavaBit server did, where the user keys are basically generated on the user's behalf on the server, and the encryption, decryption is done there. And that would be for example, companies that have to comply with Sarbanes-Oxley and maintain an unencrypted version of the message on the server itself, or for services, for example, like the one you mentioned that would want to do some sort of indexing or archiving of the messages at the server level. And a dark mail provider like that would function very similar, at least from a user's perspective, to what, and security threat model to what systems out there today do.
So you give, if you want cloud-based search, you would have to give up the end-to-end encryption.
And the
Right.
idea is that by integrating it into the protocol, users would be able to pick the service that meets their security demands. And as long
And
as
there are lots of reasons why you would want to dial down the security that range from convenience, regulation, policy, you name it. That we're saying we want to start secure and go down rather than start with no security and go up. And that's what we're changing. We're not saying that everybody's got to do it and it's got to all be end-to-end encrypted. It is going to be where the users will pick the providers who do what they want. The users will pick the systems that do what they want. And there will be a lot of places where people can make decisions to offer services based upon how well encryption fits into their model of their services.
Yeah, to expand upon that, the service provider, for example, will be able to choose whether or not they want to support SMTP. You know, there may be certain dark mail service providers out there that spring up that say, we're the super secure dark mail provider, we're not going to even let you email an SMTP address. If you type it in, it'll just generate an error. And then there'll be the more amiable providers out there who will provide SMTP gateways so that you can type in, like Mike said, an email address for a non-dark mail provider, and it'll just indicate in the UI that the message is going out insecurely. And we think in the reverse of that will be, you know, systems out there today like Exchange, or maybe some of the large webmail providers that will basically build in support for dark mail directly on their server, and it'll be kind of a reverse, where you've got a module or a plugin to support dark mail, and it does all of the encryption if going out to a dark mail domain, versus, you know, SMTP.
David?
So about 20 years ago, I asked Robert Morris Sr. about the prime factorization problem, and he gave a very interesting answer. And he said that when U.S. military laws are at stake, they do not use RSI-type algorithms. So the kind of implication is that they have ways of kind of already decrypting that. What kind of assurances can you give that the methods and protocols that you're going to be using are going to be able to remain secure given the advancement in technology and the advancement in the math?
Well, I think between the collective group of us, including the cryptographers at Silent Circle, myself and my team, as well as some of the consultants.
Trust the math.
Yeah.
Trust the math.
We've got some of the best crypto people in the world working on this.
You know, we're going to be using new developed elliptic curve cryptography that we have been working on. If you follow our Silent Circle blog, you'll see that there is a new elliptic curve that we are moving to, which is a 414-bit curve. Dan Bernstein and Tanya Lange did it for us It has about 205 bits of security in it. It should be good for about the next 75 to 100 years.
And you don't have to trust us. That's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. No longer are you at the whim of
And-
a third-party provider. It is about you generate the keys, you exchange them on the other end. They can twist our arm all day long. We can't decrypt it.
And we'll parameterize it enough because every system has to grow with the times. There was a time when 1,000-bit RSA or Diffie-Hellman keys were good enough. Now we think 2,000-3,000-bit and beyond that's the reason to go to elliptic curve. And that will change over time. And, we expect as part of crypto development that every, 5, 10, 15 years, you have to upgrade your protocols to something new.
Just to talk specifically about what you were mentioning in your question about why governments don't trust PKI and focus specifically on symmetric algorithms, it's because they can't. They can stick somebody with a symmetric key on an airplane and send it to their embassy on the other end of the world and deliver it, and then rely on something like advanced encryption standard to send messages back and forth. The rest of the world doesn't exactly have the resources to send out a courier every time they want to deliver a secure message. So we have to rely upon PKI.
Thank you. So it sounds like the next thing we should all be looking for is your Kickstarter campaign. And is there any other website we should be paying attention to follow these activities?
It's darkmail.info.
Darkmail.info.
And we'll have a white paper out shortly that everyone can look at what we're actually using. So the more we can get in on it, the better.
And are you seeking investment and partnerships? Neither or
No,
both?
no,
I am.
it's two different things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ladar and LavaBit are going to be the ambassadors that help implement this. So he is now becoming a service provider, if you will. So Ladar has a Kickstarter campaign that I highly recommend everyone jump on. But the Dark Mail Alliance, our job is to get it out open source, get as many providers up and running using it before we launch it to the citizens of the world. And that's our goal. We already have the working prototype. We want to put it out open source and get as many people as possible implemented. So you'll see us hitting all the email providers, twisting a little arms, doing a little pipe hit, and see why they couldn't join. So that's our goal.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for announcing this at Inbox Love, and appreciate your time, and I'm excited for the future with it.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think it's time for lunch.
Yeah, I'll make that announcement. So thank you all for a fun morning together. We're going to now break for lunch. You should find it outside. I believe it's in 2 different locations. You should find it outside on both sides. And we'll take 50 minutes, and we'll put a sign up for the time to come back. Thank you, guys.